Almost exactly 2 years ago to this very day, I was appointed the lead chaplain at a UK university, making me the first humanist ever to lead a chaplaincy at any university in the United Kingdom. There was some press interest in my story, and the Times of London ran an article about me, and in response, a member of the public wrote a letter into the paper expressing their dismay. How, they asked, could a university possibly appoint as their chaplain someone with no discernible beliefs? Since then, I've wondered to myself, why did this person see humanist chaplain and think no discernible beliefs? One answer: religiocentrism. In this video, I'll tell you briefly what religiocentrism is and how you can fight against it. I've worked in religious and spiritual settings for many years now, starting when I got involved in organised humanism in graduate school. And there's a tendency I've seen repeatedly in spiritual circles that I've come to call religiocentrism. Religiocentrism takes many forms, none of them benign, but basically it is a set of assumptions that puts religion at the centre of human life and identity, and views non-religion as a deviation from religion rather than as its own expression of values. Religiocentrism, I believe, distorts our understanding of the social world and our view of people's beliefs, including their motivation for switching religions, and thus should be avoided. Our very language encodes religiocentrism. We say that people leave a religion. They become lapsed. They fall away or lose their faith. Religious conversion is interpreted as a move into something, while deconversion is a movement away to the outside of something. The language of moving out of religiosity to non-religiosity is all about loss, giving something up. Indeed, the very terms religious and non-religious encode religiocentrism, because religious is the normative mode and non-religion is defined in terms of religion. This language carries implicit assumptions and value judgments about the importance of religion in people's lives. If we instinctively call movement from religion to non-religion a loss, that means we think that people are losing something when they become non-religious. Loss is not something we usually seek out. We want to gain, not lose. If a person stops practicing their religion and we call them lapsed, that means the normal state of affairs is to practice the faith, and to stop practicing is a failure of some sort. If becoming non-religious is leaving a religion, that means that non-religious people are outsiders. They have stepped away from the religious norm. We also see religiocentrism in the assumption that religion has a lot to teach us about life just because it is religion. It operates in how we relate to religious practices, ideas, and communities. We tend to give phenomena with religious roots a sort of benefit of the doubt, assuming that they must have values simply because they come from a religious tradition. Thus, even non-religious people interested in meaning-making and spirituality tend to look to religion for inspiration, assuming that there are answers there. But why do we do this? Sure, some religious traditions have persevered across millennia, but so have many secular ones. Religions promote tons of beliefs and practices which are beneficial, but also many which are unscientific and harmful. Even the staunchest believer accepts that, because they don't believe that all the religious beliefs of every religious tradition are literally true or beneficial. So even very religious people must believe that many things that members of other religions believe are simply false or harmful. And while religions are often responsible for many good things, they're responsible for egregious sins too. So why assume that we should look to religion for inspiration? Why aren't secular sources just as worthy for our consideration? I'm not saying that we shouldn't look to religion for inspiration when it works, but we should resist the religiocentric idea that just because a practice or concept is religious, it must have some value. Just like the rest of human culture, religion is a melange of brilliant and bullshit. And our task is to cast our net widely and take inspiration from the best examples of community building and meaning making, whether they come from religious spaces or not. Indeed, whether something has been traditionally considered part of a religion or not should be entirely irrelevant to us. What matters is whether it works. If we resisted religiocentrism in this way, then we would be able to see more value in secular sources of community and meaning, and it would help us appreciate the non-religious approaches to life which we might turn to for guidance. Finally, religiocentrism distorts our appreciation of the identities of people who are not religious. This is the very worst thing about it. Religiocentrism implicitly makes non-religious people seem less than, and it perpetuates dangerous assumptions about the non-religious. Consider the most commonly used demographic marker for people of no particular religion. None. We are the nuns. This says nothing about our actual beliefs, practices, or concerns. It just defines us by our lack of religion. And that encourages people to think that we don't have beliefs or concerns, and that we are simply opposed to thinking of ourselves as religious. And for the vast majority of non-religious people, that simply isn't true. People who become non-religious frequently do so because of profound positive commitments. They're committed to values like intellectual integrity, honesty, and a belief in social justice. People who embrace a non-religious view of life because they think that their former religious view was intellectually incoherent are expressing a positive commitment to the coherence of their intellectual views. People who become non-religious because they don't like the homophobic views or practices of the religion of their upbringing are not moving from a something to a nothing. They are pursuing something important and positive, their belief in the dignity and worth of LGBTQ+ people. So these people are not nuns or nothing in particular. They are people seeking intellectual integrity. They are justice-seeking allies of the queer community. Religiocentrism obscures this, obscures the reality that people who are not religious are leaving religion because of their own positive choices and values. Their perspective isn't a lack, but an active decision about how they want to live their lives. In all those ways, religiocentrism distorts our understanding of religion and the non-religious. And for this reason, it must be resisted. But how can we do that? I'll tell you 3 ways. The first is to try as far as possible to use neutral language when describing religious and non-religious people. For instance, instead of saying someone is a lapsed Catholic, which prioritizes Catholicism as the norm, say that they used to be Catholic and now they are a humanist. That has the benefit of not putting religion in the center, and also the benefit of being more full a description of the changing of their beliefs. Instead of saying someone lost their faith, you might say they are no longer Christian, now they're an atheist. It's a simple switch in language that stops privileging religion. Secondly, you can try and describe what positive beliefs humanists and atheists hold. If you find that difficult, you can watch my video on what humanists do believe. But a simple example is to say not they deconverted from Christianity, but they chose to embrace the dignity of their LGBTQ friends and family. Describe the positive beliefs that they've moved towards. Finally, and most fun, we can sometimes strategically flip the script. We can turn religiocentrism on its head. What if we were to switch this language around? What if instead of converting to Christianity, people deconverted from humanism? That gives things an entirely different flavour, doesn't it? What if instead of finding faith, a convert lost rationality? That probably sounds very judgmental and value-laden, but consider loss of faith is already a value-laden term. We just tend not to realise it because it's so commonly and thoughtlessly used. It's part of our mental furniture. What if we said of practicing believers, they are lapsed atheists? None of those phrases are inherently ridiculous or meaningless, but they do jar the ear. And that reveals how deeply religiocentrism is embedded in our language. So strategically flipping the script can help people realize how their thinking is infected with religiocentrism. So think about that next time you're writing or speaking about religion. How is your language encoding assumptions about religion being normal and desirable, and non-religion being abnormal and undesirable? And if you find your language is religiocentric, then say something else. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the depths.